There is a lot of discussion about the war in the East between Germany and the Soviet Union, including its real and alternative scenarios. However, few people seem to realize the true question: why did Germany do it? What were its goals? If we speak of soil in Europe today, we can primarily have in mind only Russia and their vassal border states. End quote. Adolf Hitler in Mein Kampf. In 1918, Russia was in both a world war and a civil war. The Bolsheviks made a peace deal with Germany where they ceded multiple territories to the Central Powers. Puppet states were made of these territories, namely the United Baltic Duchy, composed by Latvia and Estonia, Lithuania, Poland, Ukraine and Belarus. Germany never managed properly to exploit their economy and resources because of the manpower needed on the Western Front, and they would surrender in the end of that year. In this scenario, Germany wanted puppet states aligned with them, which would eventually have resources and factories in the hands of their masters. However, they would be able to preserve some local autonomy and independence. This system wouldn't last long, but it wouldn't be the first or only time someone looked east for a breadbasket. Hitler, as laid out in Mein Kampf, had a different concept for these territories: Lebensraum, vital space. He intended to have a completely self-sufficient nation known as autarky, without relying on anyone's imports, and land where he could settle and breed a larger population. He saw this as a necessity because he didn't see Germany as a world power. And his economic theory of the shrinking markets, where a highly industrialized nation would sell industrial parts to less industrialized nations in exchange for resources. In his view, rather sooner than later, the less industrialized nations would become highly industrialized and would no longer need to buy the former industrial parts. Nazis looked to the Soviet Union, as others did before, for resources, but instead of subjugating the local population, they will cleanse or Germanize it. After the Wehrmacht, the Einsatzgruppen, that being SS extermination units, would follow to, quote, pacify, end quote, the conquered territory. They would kill, enslave, and capture Aryan-looking children to indoctrinate. Germans were meant to occupy the conquered lands and live as feudals, where a minority of the local population would be kept for slave work. Territories were managed through administrative entities called the Reichskommissariats, each with its own Reichskommissar, or Reich Commissioner. A few were formed under General Plan Ost. In the east, the general government, which was Poland, Reichskommissariat Ostland, which was composed by Lithuania, Estonia, Latvia, and a part of Belarus, and Reichskommissariat Ukraine, which was extended to have some Russian territories as well. These are not states or puppets formed, rather administrative areas, a transition state to incorporation. These areas would ensure Germany would be able to implement autarky and solve the shrinking markets problem, because these areas would always be German and rather rural to the interest of the industrialized capital. Hitler expected to have a population boom, so he did offer incentive for Germans to have children. He also needed population for this future nation that not even the United States would be able to match. The territories would eventually be integrated and directly annexed by Germany. He expected the Soviets to fall, but fighting until the end is organized in Siberia. It would be a ritual to strengthen young Germans where they would be expected to serve. A wall of men was expected to protect his empire. Had Germans succeeded to achieve this vision, more administrative areas would have been formed, like Reichskommissariat Muscovian, based in Moscow and having the northern and central European Russia, and Reichskommissariat Caucasian, being composed by all the territories in the Caucasus. Regarding the last administrative area, some historians claim Turkey could have had it, had they joined the war in Germany's favor, and some buffer states would be set in their borders, of course granting Germany the resources there, namely oil. Germany didn't expect to occupy the whole of Soviet Union, but rather severely incapacitate it. The objective issued through Führer's Directive 21 by Hitler, ordering the German forces to prepare for the invasion of the Soviet Union through a swift move. The AA line, which goes from the Volga River to Archangel, should be reached. Quote, in quick pursuit, a line is then to be reached from which the Russian Air Force will no longer be able to attack the territory of the German Reich. The ultimate objective of the operation is to establish a cover against Asiatic Russia from the general line Volga-Archangel. Then, in case of necessity, the less industrial area left to Russia in the Urals can be eliminated by the Luftwaffe. End quote, Adolf Hitler. Where the nationalists intended on a revision of Versailles, the ultra-nationalists didn't see it as enough, and though it was not only a right but a short-term survival necessity. No attempt to make a central system or to liberate its people. Only the need, in their view, to make Germany the strongest nation through force and genocide. Everything just became bureaucratic. After some years, enough to make a new generation, a boom in population was expected in these new settlements. After all the bureaucratic work of erasing nations and Germanizing territory, the commissariats would have no further need, so they would be annexed and incorporated into the Reich. Hope you like this video. Tell me in the commentaries if you knew this, if you ever asked yourself about this, and don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. It will help my channel. Thank you very much and see you next time.